If you've been following with us, we're working on a 2011 Land Rover naturally aspirated engine. It came in with a blown head gasket. Had multiple misfires, random misfires. Almost all cylinders were misfiring. Also the classic sign of blown head gasket.
Coolant mixed oil.
There we have a thick white smoke and smelly, misty smoke coming out of the tailpipe. Rough idles real bad, and with all that stuff, we've been tearing out the engine. Actually, so far we removed the intake, the air boxes, the injectors, and then now we managed to get to the valve covers. We removed the valve covers. The valve covers are attached with 10 millimeters going around. You don't forget you have two studs up front, which will have attachment to 8 millimeter to secure the high pressure fuel lines. Beside that, all you have to do is clean around it and remove the valve covers. And we just did that. If you missed that, you could go back and watch part 2, how we arrived to that. Of course, I did not show how exactly you pick up the valve covers, but it's simple. Once you remove the fuel injectors, you don't have to remove the spark plugs. You can leave the spark plugs where they are. You could just remove the bolts around and remove anything around it, and then you could just lift the valve covers. It's not that difficult. And now we're going to work on moving to the actual removal of the head. Before we get to that, of course, we have to remove anything to do with timing front covers, top and bottom. And to get to the timing cover, we have to remove a crankshaft pulley. And definitely you need a special tool. Without that, really, I wouldn't dare do this without a proper tool. But if you have the tool, it makes your life a lot easier, and then you will avoid damaging the crankshaft. So I use all the proper tools to do this. I use the proper tool to remove the crankshaft pulley, and also we're going to use camshaft locking tools, relector wheel locking tool, flywheel locking tools to be able to break that loose. You need to make certain, you have to be sure before you try to break anything loose, you make sure everything is in the right place. You are in a TDC, top dead center on bank 1, and then your sprocket for your crankshaft is at 6 o'clock position. And then that is why when you were able to put the special locking tool on the reluctant wheel, you want to secure the crankshaft locking tool, some sort of a stand. This is a left-hand thread, so not lefty-loosey. If you have a 12.9, definitely it is a left-hand thread, and those bolts are not something you can use again. It will snap and it will make your life a miserable life. Do not do lefty-loosey. It is, if it's 10, yes, but if it's 12.9 on a crankshaft bolt, it is a left-hand thread, so you actually go right clockwise to loosen and counterclockwise to tighten. And then let's get to some of the videos I have for you, and then thank you for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe.
Just remove the valve cover on bank 2, and it looks okay. The parts look very new. Still the marking is on there. Can't complain. I just have to clean up a little bit here to get the coolant mixed oil, clean it up with transmission fluid, and we should be ready to go. Look at that bank 1. It still looks good. Time to be able to remove the head, we have to remove anything attached to the heads. On bank 1, remove the front
time cover and also the lower timing cover. To get to that, we have to definitely remove the crankshaft pulley, and we need the special tool to do that. I didn't record that. Self-explanatory. You just do that. Just keep in mind it's again a left-hand thread. From what I read on a shop manual, it does require you some sort of torque wrench, multi-level torque wrench, capable of doing 600 Newton, meaning as the engine turns, I think it gets tightened, and you're gonna feel like you're gonna about to break it before you break that thing loose. Of course, you want to do it by locking the timing in place. You don't want to do it any other way. You don't want to use impact. You need a long breaker bar. Go to Home Depot or somewhere and then find you some sort of an extension. The actual socket which comes with the tool, the socket is the 3/4 or 3/4. So you need a 3/4 breaker bar. Truck bar is what you're gonna need to break that loose. And definitely a long leverage, a long extension is required to break the crankshaft bolt. The crankshaft bolt pulley is extremely tight. And since it's not a lefty loosey, so you're gonna go to the right, you're gonna go clockwise to loosen. And crankshaft holding tool, the tool has to be propped with a floor jack. And the other thing is you want to put everything in time. Bank 1 and cylinder 1 has to be in TDC. At that point, your timing sprockets on the front, or the status, the variable VVT timing gears will have the markings in the right places, and you'll be able to slide in the camshaft locking tools. Once you did that, once everything is right, or if everything is right, you should be able to easily slide in and out the reluctant wheel locking tool. That's a small piece which is gonna be going in where your crankshaft sensor is. You remove that crankshaft sensor from the back of the engine, and it's secured by a T30 Torx screw or bolt. And you remove that, and then you'll be able to use the same screw, the same bolt. If everything is right, what's going to happen is the tool will not want to sit, it will slide out because you got everything right. If you struggle to put it in and it's not right, and it has to be flush, just like crankshaft sensor, it should sit just like that. And then you should be able to move it in and out with no effort at all. It should actually drop by itself if it's not secured with a bolt. So that's the key. This locking tool on the back of the engine should be able to go in and out freely like this. So I just put 2 turns on the thread on the little tiny bolt here and the camshaft sensor. When everything is right, in a perfect world, you should be able to play like this. It should go in and out freely once you have everything in TDC. And I have already locked both sides of the banks with the cam locking tool, and this is going in and out. Now all I have to do is snug this in all the way. See, it has to touch it has to be flush with here, like that. I want to zoom in. It shouldn't be like that. It should be all the way in. All right. And this one right here, after you remove the starter, let's go inside and see if it's aligned.
Let's see. So the purpose of this is to using that flywheel to lock this in place. The other thing is removing the top part of the timing cover. Do not bother removing all those sensors up front, the variable timing sensors or eccentric sensors, whatever sensors you have on attached to the front timing cover. Do not remove them. Of course, they already by now you should not have any wires hanging around, but the sensors will be there. Do not remove them. Leave the sensors on the top timing cover where they are. Just remove the screws and it should be slided out. Keep in mind, these timing covers are not, they don't have a gasket. They do have gasket, but it's just a gasket maker, an RTV, just RTV around it, which you're gonna have to do whenever you put it back. So you want to just try to remove all the screws. Make sure you don't have any screws lingering around, and you should be able to pop that open. And the other thing is, the things you have to remove is the bank one has a ground, which on the back of the engine on the side, you have to remove that. And again, on bank one and also on bank two, you have a coolant outlet flange, like a black coolant, sort of a transfer pipe kind of thing. You have that coolant outlet flange with the sensor. You want to remove that. That is secured to the vehicle using 4 T-Torx screws. Keep those screws with that. And then definitely, I highly recommend you replace this or check if it's got any cracks. It's very notorious. Probably one of the reasons why you have an overheating car. So just make sure that that is replaced while you're at it, if you can. And if you don't want to pay the $150 or $130 on this part, you could use $5 JB weld, and it will do the magic. Just make sure you pressure test that and see you don't have any leak on that thing. Even if you buy aftermarket, that's wonderful. Don't forget to swap the sensor. I do not believe aftermarket sensors, so keep them clean, that old sensor, and put it back in. Unless you have a code for that sensor. But if you do replacing it with OEM original parts, Land Rover part LR07042, and it also has another part number, which is LR018273. If it's original one, of course the sensor will be original, so you don't have to worry about that. And of course, now let's get back to removing. So that has to be removed. And then the other thing you have to remove on bank 2 is a 10mm bolt securing the AC line. Just undo that. You probably have to get at the bottom or the side of the vehicle on bank 2. Sort of pull it away from the head. And then also you want to remove sort of an oil pickup tube, which goes from the bank to all the way to the bottom of the engine. It is secured by 2 T-Torx bolts again, and you want to remove that and keep those bolts together so you don't have to search for those things when you're done. Time to put it back together. And then the other thing I want to talk about is the tappets on these things. The exhaust and intake inlet they are different. Keep everything organized, labeled, and then what you're going to do is wipe them down with a dry, clean cloth and write on them. If it's one, I wrote one from the front of the vehicle to all the way to the back. You need to make sure that tappets on the intake are special tappets, and then the exhaust, that's just an exhaust. They are just round. You don't have any certain way of putting them in, so you can just slide them in. But the tappets on the intake side are keyed. They could only go one way. The exhaust and the intake and the exhaust, these things are not the same. These ones are, they keyed, so they only go in a certain way. but the other ones, they could just turn the 360 freely. So I'm gonna number them from the same way, 1 to whatever number that is, from here to here. So 1 being here. So these ones are gonna have the same number, 1 to whatever.
You should just pay attention to that for now. Later on the installation, we'll talk about it more. Removal of the camshaft is, of course, required to get to the bolts, and then definitely mark the bolt, the camshafts. The camshaft has a timing key on the sprockets, as well as in the back of the cam. There is the lower part of the cam and then the top part of the cam. So you need to, when you remove it, highlight, mark the bottom of the sprocket, because that has to be at the bottom when you put in the timing tool. I mean, later on, it will help you on timing, so you don't have to mix it up. I will definitely do that. On a removal, you gradually move from the back of the engine, loosening the camshaft caps. The caps. When you remove the caps, those the T-Torx bolts. So make sure you remove them from back to front. You want to loosen those bolts gradually. So you don't want to put too much pressure in one part of the camshaft and then mess up things. The other thing is identifying the head bolts. Like I said, it could be M11 or M10. On this case, it's an M10. And you want to have the proper tool. You should be able to get some tools to take those bolts off. Do not confuse them. Don't think these are a regular T60 or a T50 Torx. You strip these bolts and you're gonna have a nightmare. So these are not T-Torx bolts. Again, these are not a T-Torx bolts. So, and then these are different head bolts. So you make sure you have the right tool. What I used, you're gonna see on the video, and then I'll explain on the video. And make sure you have the proper tool. On this vehicle, it was M10. It does not mean that an M10 bolt, an M10 tool from a different vehicle will work on this. Absolutely not. These are not. These are different animals, so different bolts. So keep in mind that when you order your head bolts, make sure whatever you're buying, at least the picture should match.
These are the head bolts inside the Jaguar. From what I read, there are 2 different ones. There's M11. I think these are 10s, according to Jaguar I just called. And then you got to really be careful, because according to what I read, you need a special Torx. From what I could see, these are just a regular, they look like a regular Pulley bits. 6-point Pulley bits. Some people call them Torx, but these are not Torx. The other word is ribe or rib, R-I-B-E, I believe, for these. I couldn't find anything, so I had to improvise and take a risk. Which on this one you can see, you can see that I spent too much time on this one. Anyways. What I will do is, if you could get one, which is about $100 for the actual tool, and I think maybe 1 or 2 people are selling it. I call Jaguar. Jaguar say, we don't sell no tools. But I improvised. I've been on the internet trying to find a way to do this. So I found a rib set, ribe set or rib set, or the poly set. And then 12 is a perfect fit. Of course, even though it's a perfect fit, you want to just push it in. I'll show you how you put it in. This one is 12. But if you ever strip this one, you're in big trouble. But you want to go to the next size up, and then you need to make sure that you take your time hammering it in, and then try to snap it with a big breaker bar. But the best thing to do is now to just use the next size up, which is 13, but what you want to use is 12 rib or ribe, RIBE. Just make sure this is not too big of a size. This is almost the size of 60mm socket. Anything bigger than that will not fit, and it will not go down in a hole. The actual way to do it is to buy the two tools to do this, which is a sleeve, like a tube, which will protect the wall of the cylinder. Cylinder head in here, and then also you will have to buy a longer tool. But I removed the other one using this. So what you want to do is you will move it around. See, when it's not moving around, you want to hammer it in. You will see. Listen to the sound difference. See, when you hear high-pitched sound, that means it's sitting well. So you use a breaker bar and you snap it up. Let me break it loose like that. Of course, you want to break everything first, then you remove it. So that's how it is. You can watch me do one more if you want to, or go to the next step.
Once you remove everything, definitely I would recommend you waken these head bolts or go around and prime this by just smacking them with the head bolt tool. And then hit him with the hammer and wake him up, not too much, so you don't want to crack any, because you don't want to crack the aluminum head. Just wake him up by hitting him, smacking him with the hammer or a mallet. After that, you want to top him in slowly, and then that way you can waken all those up, and that would help you not break any bolts. But sometimes this is inevitable. I mean, even if you did that, you might snap a bolt, and then you're gonna have a hard time. But definitely you want to make sure that you waken all the bolts and you break them loose first, not turn them, but break them loose. Just once you break one loose, go to the next one in a sequence. The sequence to remove, of course, is from outside in. The torque, I'll try to put it up. So the torque, when you look at the torque specs on the book, it will tell you to go from the middle and out, but when you loosen them, you go from outside in. And then the other thing is, expect some loose head bolts. That means that's the area, or probably the bank, where you have extensive coolant leak, where the head gasket was busted. And in that area, you want to slow down and be careful and inspect the threads once you remove the head gasket. So let's see what we can.
The places that you want to be careful is in the back corner right there, both bangs, because you don't have a lot of clearance to sort of tap in the tools. So just be careful. Take your time on the other side, on the corners. I believe this bolt just snapped it out. You saw the difference. One of the bolts snapped out. Alright. You probably heard it as saying, be careful what you wish for, because you might just get it. You know, I asked for a challenge and picked up this vehicle to try to do a rebuild on this one, the head gasket and stuff. And in the process of removing the head, in bank one, 2 head bolts were loose, and I didn't have to struggle anything. They just were sitting there, barely, almost hand tied. Of course, that's the area where it blew the head gasket. Now, and I am having a nightmare without actually sleeping. And then this is a nightmare. I broke a head bolt. And if you understand this engine, the thread starts after almost 4 inches down a block. So, and if you look at the size of the thread, broke off and left inside the bank too. It was frustrating. And I already called several machine shops. They say they cannot help me. They actually gave me a different specialist phone number. Try to make this happen. Try to make this work. Or somebody could just fix this for me. You know, remove the broken thread out of the recessed hole. And no luck. So I had to... So my options are to abandon this project and then find another engine and then put it in and then call it a day, or just bite the bullet and then try to remove a broken head bolt. This will be the next video. Stay tuned. Hopefully we could do this together. Try to remove a broken head bolt from a recessed hole, which is 3 and 4 inches down in a block. Please write in the comment section if you can what you think of, or what should I do to keep this project alive. And please like and subscribe. Thank you for watching. See you on the next video.